Dolores, you're very welcome to Capricorn TV. What an awesome day I'm having learning about your work.
Okay.
I think the first thing just on the hypnosis, you talk about some holistic type of hypnotherapy. Can you just briefly describe that and why that's so important to your regression?
Well, the normal hypnosis, they don't do the type work that I do. Some of them do past life regressions, but they don't go all the rest of the way and get the healing. My method, we have found how to have instant healing in one session. A powerful technique that every illness, every disease, every physical ailment can be healed in one session instantly. That's why it's different than the normal hypnosis out there. They don't even approach what we have learned to do.
Is it more difficult to do, or is it just difficult?
It's very, very simple, very easy. And over 45 years, I've developed it to where it is a simple method. It's not complicated at all. The other methods, the old methods, are much more complicated.
You gravitated into this because of the regression work, though. That's why you tried this different type of style, is that correct?
Well, after my husband died, and while he was living even, we went into the past life regression. I've been doing that all along. Then it just developed into this other method. It's been a gradual thing, but it happened after all these other incidents happened.
So you said that there's the same information coming through from hundreds of people on all the regressions that you've done. At what point did you realize there's something to all this, that there's a pattern? You must have been in shock and awe that this was being repeatedly told.
No, I never go into shock and awe. I'm always curious.
Curious?
Yes, because when it begins to happen, I see a pattern right away. And I know what's happening. I said, we're repeating something and we're getting more same information. That's when I put that down, and then I know some more will come soon, and it always comes right after that, some more information about the same subject. But I'm not in awe of it. It's just, wow, look what I found now.
It's like a realization and an importance or significance, perhaps?
Well, I guess it's just like, look what I discovered. And that part is interesting. Because I'm the reporter, the investigator, the researcher of lost knowledge. So if I can find something that nobody knows, or it's been lost or buried and forgotten, that's my job, is to bring it back.
You're very humble. You have wrote 13 books and traveled, I believe, you told me this morning, 2 million miles. That's pretty powerful in your career, though.
Yes, 2 million miles. I have 17 books in print.
Sorry.
And the 18th is ready to go to press.
Wow.
I'm working on 3 more.
Wow. Can you hold up a copy of your most recent book, just for the camera, for those that want to have a copy? The 3 Waves of Volunteers in the New Era.
Yeah, that's one of the last ones I've written.
Can you just tell us a little synopsis of that, just a very, very brief, if you
Well,
can?
that deals with the 3 waves of volunteers, who are the people that have volunteered to come into the earth at this time to help save the earth from their energy. Their energy is pure, so they're bringing in a special kind of energy that will help change the world, and that's why they're here. And people all over the world, we get tons of emails, and they're always saying, that's how I feel, and I didn't think anybody else in the world felt that way. They felt they were all alone.
Admittedly, in the last 4 years, there's been massive changes on the earth. I mean, being in the midst of this and helped. I think a lot of people that come to your conferences and read your books would be looking for awareness. Would that be the one thing you wanted to take away and raise their awareness?
We are making a difference. Things are changing. And I have great hope for the world, because I see what's happening everywhere. And it's a very important time to be alive right now.
You were talking in the workshop about there is no good or evil. Where does Satan fit into all this? This is the one that I...
There is no Satan.
Creation? Fictitious creation by man?
He's talking about Satan.
Yeah.
There is no Satan.
This is man playing out his...
There is no devil, there is no Satan. What you're talking about is Lucifer.
Yeah.
Lucifer was an angel, according to the stories. But No, there's no evil forces at all. That's what people have to get away from. The church is the ones who have created all of that, to make people afraid.
I've always personally thought that life is a test and I'm trying to better myself, and I always kind of, you know, I throw it back to key decisions that I make in my life, and they're like, do you think they're like nodal points that you know?
Well, that's what life is all about, learning lessons and having experiences. So it's constantly making decisions and hoping you're going to make the right one.
Do you think perhaps the timeline at the start point and the finish point is guaranteed? It's just these nodal points could change in between these key decisions?
You mean of your life?
Yeah.
Well, you know when you come into Earth, you make a plan of when you're going to leave. You also make plans of the different events that will occur along the way if you take advantage of them. If you don't, your life could take another path and be totally different. It's all about crossroads, all about paths. Which one do you go down?
I believe in UFOs, I believe in souls and other dimensions and other galaxies that we come and we go and we reincarnate. But if I wanted to remember, do I have that in me as an ability to remember, or is it just something that will either happen?
With the hypnosis and the past life regressions, you can remember.
Is there any other way that would naturally happen or spontaneous?
Maybe through meditation. If you learn how to meditate and quiet your mind, you might be able to remember.
Is it important as a soul on this planet that we do remember?
Not really.
It's just a matter of choice?
It's a curiosity of humans. Because they, the ones I work with, have said it doesn't matter anymore. If you think about the past, you're dwelling in the past. So they said, think about now and moving forward, not on what you had done that you wish you hadn't done in other lives. So we're not supposed to worry about that. We're supposed to just move on and think about now. So, not really that important if you find out what you did or not.
You talk about the wheel of karma. If somebody wants to get off that wheel of karma and try to progress, what's the best way to do that?
Forgive.
Something I have trouble with. I'm glad I asked that.
They have to forgive those that they have harmed, and then to forgive themselves, because it always takes two in every situation. They forget about that. To forgive everyone who they think has harmed them, not carry that forward. Let it go, it doesn't matter, it's not important. And then to forgive themselves for the part they played in the situation.
You see metaphysics and modern age quantum physics blending in now. Do you have hope for...
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
There is no difference.
For some physicists it's not. But,
well, the physicists are agreeing with me.
yeah.
I get emails from them and they say, you're rewriting physicists. How do you pronounce that?
Yeah,
Physics. They said, you're rewriting it. You're making it where everybody can understand it now. It's all connected. Science separates it, but there is no separation, really.
You also talk about consciousness of cells. How important is cellular memory? Is it
Cellular memory just for the body.
Okay, so that's all like questions. I do want to mention the cruise that you're going on, the Holy Land cruise. Why the Holy Land cruise at sea? Is it something you love to do? Is it the setting?
Well, 2 years ago we did a Mediterranean cruise, and we went to most of these same ports. This time we wanted to go to ports that we hadn't gone to before. We thought, well, we hadn't been to Jerusalem and Israel, so throw that in. Because it's things that people want to see. But now we're a little worried about it because they're having the problems over there. But they said if they can't go there, because they won't go there if there's any hint of danger, they will put in some other ports to go to. But we're calling it the Holy Land Cruise because we've never been to Israel before.
And of course the Holy Land Cruise is on October 25th to November 5th, 2014, featuring Robert Boval, yourself, Dolores Cannon, and Haktan Akdogan, I think his name is.
He's from Istanbul, and Guy Needler is from England, from London. He's coming.
I've had Guy Needler on the show, lovely guy.
And Maria Wheatley is another English author who's going to be on the cruise.
Another regular Black Tornado.
Okay.
Wow, fascinating. Okay, listen, Dolores, I really thank you for your time today. I know you've had a long day, so I really appreciate your time.
Trying to get the heat regulated because she was dripping wet up here. So we're trying to get all the windows open. Okay, you want me to test this? Is it working okay? Okay, good. I'll probably take his jacket off in a little bit. Okay. Thank you. All right, well, I've written 17 books, and at lectures I can talk about so many things. I have tons of information. But they said they wanted me to focus today on reincarnation and past lives. Wasn't that what it was? Whoever's the boss. You the boss? Okay. Because otherwise I can go off into so many other categories. And we'll have questions and answers, and if people want to go off into the other parts, you can do that. But if we want to focus on the reincarnation, past lives, and what happens when you die, and what it's like on the other side. There's a whole lot of material in all of that, if that's okay. Okay, well, I know most of you know who I am. Is that true? Is there anybody here who doesn't know me? Good, good. For about the last 5 years when I've been giving my lectures, things have been changing in the audience. Used to be, you know, everybody knew me. And now we have an audiences where we fill auditoriums in some places. And people are always saying, we didn't know who you were. We just found you last week. And I said, I haven't been hiding. I've been doing this work for 45 years. And my books have been out for over 30 years, so I haven't been hiding. Well, what's happening, it's the internet generation. And most of it is these young people are finally beginning to discover metaphysics and discover psychic things. To them, it comes very natural and very easy. So that's where things are changing now, and I think it's for the good that that's happening. Because, I mean, I've had to watch this evolve. When I began 45 years ago, nobody was doing any of this. That's why they called me the pioneer in the beginning of reincarnation, past life regression. When I began in the 60s, such a thing did not exist. Metaphysics didn't exist. There was no New Age. The majority of the Western world didn't know anything about past lives or reincarnation at all. Because when I started and we got into it by accident, if anything is ever an accident, they thought I was working with the devil, having seances, speaking to the dead. Well, we are speaking to the dead, but it's not the way they were saying. I got kicked out of the church. A whole lot of things happened in those days. How many of you read my first book, 5 Lives Remembered? Not too many. So maybe I can go over a little bit about that. But that's how I can see how things have changed. But when I began, my husband was a Navy veteran, 21 years in the Navy. And me and him were both doing hypnosis in those days. But hypnosis was only used for habits. Stop smoking, lose weight, and to relax. Nobody would have ever thought of using hypnosis in any other way. That's why I said I'm a pioneer in this. There were no books out on it, nothing. There was absolutely nothing to tell a hypnotist what to do if something like, if they would go into a past life, because there wasn't any such thing. But My husband had just come back from Vietnam, and we were stationed down in Texas on a Navy base. And we were trying to get our lives back to normal. Well, we were doing the hypnosis for habits, and a lot of the men who were being transferred to Vietnam, some of them were very nervous and scared, so we were doing hypnosis to try to calm them down and relax them. That's all we were doing. And then the doctor on the base called us and said he had a woman patient who had what he called nervous eating. She had kidney problems and high blood pressure blood problems because of overeating. And he said, if you can just get her, she was very overweight, just get her to relax, that's all I want you to do. So during the process of getting her to relax, she jumped into a past life. In the roaring 20s in Chicago, with the flappers and the gangs. And it's like, what's going on here? Now, I had heard of past lives. It wasn't totally new to me, but we've never experienced anything. And a lot of people said they would have just stopped it, shut it down right there because this is too weird, too strange. But my trademark is curiosity. I'm curious. I always want to know everything about everything. So instead of getting frightened, I just want to know more. So we continued working with this woman. And we did it in our house. And it was all recorded on the portable tape recorder of the day. Things that big, so portable you couldn't even lift the thing. If you've seen the old reel-to-reel, I've still got it. That's what they were taped on. And we had to do it in our house. You couldn't hardly take it anywhere else. Well, we kept having these sessions. She was getting better, but we were curious. We wanted to know, what have we stumbled in here? And so she began to go through other lifetimes. And then we began to find out about between lives. We're speaking to somebody who's dead. Well, we were so fascinated by this that we tried to keep the woman anonymous, but the people on my husband's friends on the base, other sailors, began to hear what we were doing. They came to the house and wanted to hear the tape recording. A lot of them had the totally wrong ideas, and that's where it began to spread around the base. We were having seances and stuff like that. Nobody understood what we were doing. You talk about past lives, they said, you're crazy. There's no such thing. That's where I began. But in the beginning of all of this, we just tried everything because there was nothing to tell you what you could do and what you couldn't do. So we were just experimenting. And in the middle of all of it, my husband was almost killed. He'd made it back from Vietnam fine, but he was on the way back from going to work at the base one night and was hit by a drunken officer coming off of the base. Head-on collision. And it was horrible. He really died 3 times that night. His entire lower body was totally crushed. He was in a Volkswagen bus. You know what those are. There's nothing in front of you. So you get the total impact of it, and he was ground into the metal. And whenever the helicopters came, they didn't have the jaws of life in those days. They had to try to pry the metal apart to get him out of there. So he was bleeding to death. The only thing that saved his life was in the car behind him was a corpsman who was just returning from Vietnam, who knew how to handle trauma. Otherwise, he would have died. He knew what to do. So he was able to at least keep him alive long enough to get him to the hospital. But he actually died 3 times. And the doctor said there was no way he could live, too much trauma, too much damage. And he had 3 brain concussions, his face was torn apart, plus all the damage to the lower legs. And they said if he did live, he would be a vegetable because of the blood clots and the damage to the brain. So we didn't know what was going to happen. They came and got me and took me to the hospital. We didn't know what to expect. But it sounded like a train when I was sitting back there. Is that what it is? Okay. But let's back up a little bit. Can you hear me over that? Okay. When we were doing the experimenting, we didn't know what you could do. So I said, let's let her go into the future and see what we're going to be doing in the future. She saw us living where we live now. We live in the country on top of a mountain in Arkansas, very isolated. Believe me, I need that. I'm traveling all the time. I'm around people all the time. That's my refuge, my retreat, where I recharge my battery. But she saw us living, we had a big family, living on this mountaintop out in the country. So that night, when they came and got me and took me to the hospital, I was sitting there while 5 doctors, one after the other, came out talking to me, saying there's no way he can live. There's just too much damage. You got to be prepared for that. He's probably going to die during the middle of the night. We aren't even going to try to do anything because it's hopeless. And I kept telling them, you're wrong. I couldn't tell them how I knew. They already thought me, the other ones thought we were crazy enough. I couldn't tell them how I knew, but I knew if she saw us in the future, we weren't going to die. He wasn't going to die that night. So they kept trying to convince me, and I said, no, you're wrong. So finally they said, well, if you really believe that, maybe he'll be okay. As it was, they began calling him the Miracle Man. He overcame every obstacle that she wasn't supposed to overcome. By the next day, his body began to go back by itself. His face, even, they thought they were going to have to do several plastic surgery on his face. It all went back with no sign that anything had ever been done. Now, he was really unconscious the most of the time he was in there. And they kept coming in and saying, this is a miracle man. And finally, when they saw he was going to live, then they started working on him. Now, he was in a body cast for 8 months. I used to wonder, what would that be like, to go 8 months and not be able to move? It was pretty horrible. He was in the hospital for a year. But the whole thing was just unheard of. But anyway, the town really reacted. When this happened to him, they were all saying, this is God punishing you. Look what you're into. Reincarnation, past lives, peeking around hidden corners, looking at things you're not supposed to be looking at. God's punishing you. And I couldn't believe that, because I knew God wasn't going to punish you for just asking questions and wanting to have information and knowledge. Besides, the God we had discovered when we were doing the work was such a God of love that I knew that wasn't going to happen. It's funny, everything I found 45 years ago, I'm still finding the same information. I've written several books on it. The information has never changed. So we had truths back then, even though nobody knew what it was. It's still the same information I'm getting today through thousands and thousands and thousands of clients. It has not changed about the afterlife and what happens. So we had truths. When it's truth, I think it's repeatable. I think anything that is repeatable, it's like a scientific experiment. If you can repeat the same experiment over and over again, it has validity. That's the way I believe, and I think that should be truth. So we have proved beyond a shadow of a doubt now, with all of the cases I've done and all the classes I've given, that we have discovered the truth. We've never found anything contradictory of what I've discovered back then. But anyway, he eventually was put out of the service as a disabled veteran, and we did move to the hills of Arkansas. We had to go somewhere where you could live with a big family and no money. Arkansas was a perfect place. And we spent years just barely making it. But he was in a wheelchair for 25 years. He could get around on crutches outside, but the majority of the time he was in the wheelchair. And it was during that time I began to think a lot about what we had discovered. I wanted to continue hypnosis, but not the old methods, the same old stuff. I wanted to go back into the time travel that we had discovered. That's what I call it. We're going through time tunnels. We're discovering things in time. And when you do that, you're there in time, and you're getting the research, you're getting the information from the people these things happen to. That's what I wanted to do. Incidentally, we're making a movie on that first book, Five Lives Remembered. I don't know what they're going to call it, but they said it's such a fantastic story. It's about the beginnings. It's about that time era, the mindset in that time era. But I wanted to get back into this, but there was nothing being taught about it. It was still the same old hypnosis. Even in the 70s, there was very little being done. The only thing I could find at that time was they were using visualization and imagery. So I began to study that and to apply it. Now, see, because there was nothing out there, I had to invent my own technique. That's why it's so different than any other hypnosis technique, because nobody taught me what to do. I had to find it out from years of what would happen if I change this? What would happen if I throw this out and add something new? It was years and years of trying and perfecting it to where now we have something that is very teachable. But it took years to do that. So it was many years before I finally began to do it again in the 70s. I had to wait till the kids were grown, they were getting married, going off to college. Then it's, what are you going to do with the rest of your life? I decided what I wanted to do was not what the typical mother wanted to do. I wanted to time travel. I wanted to explore history. So I decided to do that. And the amazing thing is in the hills of Arkansas, people came to me. I don't ever know how they found me, but they did. So my first books are about history. The Jesus material is some of the first books I ever wrote. And I have several other ones that were about history. So that's what I was doing during all that time, was this exploring. And it was up in the 80s before anybody began even thinking, wow, past lives, maybe there's something to that. It took me 9 years to get my first book published. 9 years of heartbreak. I've been through everything an author could be gone through. Every type of rejection, everything that could possibly happen to an author. I speak at writers' conferences now. I said, you don't have a clue how hard it is. I had to wait for the rest of the world to catch up with me. You send it off to a publisher, past lives, reincarnation, what are you talking about? They didn't believe it. So I had to wait till the rest of the world caught up with me. And it was in the 1980s when one of the first ones was my publisher right here in England decided to take a chance on me and publish the Jesus books. He said, I don't know if they'll be accepted or not because of the way the information was obtained. But he took a chance and published them. They've been in print ever since. Over 20 languages all over the world. And that was one of the first books I wrote. And I have some of the other ones. But it all began with the history. Then I was going along with that part when they asked me to become a UFO investigator, and that was in the 80s. And they said, you've been involved in the bazaar for so long, we don't think you'd be frightened if we asked you to come into the UFO community. I said, no, I'm just curious. I always want to know more. So it wouldn't bother me at all if that's what you want me to explore. So I began doing that, and I've been doing UFO investigations for 27 years. I've investigated the crop circles for, since the 90s, when I first started coming over here. So I've been involved in the unusual, the weird, and the strange for a long time. But to me, that is the most exciting, finding new information, lost information, information nobody knows or it's buried and has never been found. To me, that's the most exciting part of my work. But I kept it up, and writing more books and seeing thousands of clients when something began to happen. And this is the part that Julia was doing with her drawing, when I discovered them. And once I discovered them, the whole thing changed because they began coming in on their own into my sessions and giving information. And they're the ones that was doing the instant healing. And I knew I'd found something. But then I found it was repeatable. And I found, everybody says, what do you think the first time it happened? It was gradual. They're always gradual and subtle. And it was so gradual that I didn't realize what was happening until I found out I could contact them through anybody I was working with. So now that's what I'm teaching, is how to contact them and let them come through and heal the person. And they have the answer to anything you'd want to know. This is where my books, The Convoluted Universe, come from. They said, all you have to do is ask the question, and you can have any information you want. So that's the way it was going, gradually. And now I've trained over 5,000 people all over the world. We're traveling all the time to all, is it more than that or not? It is now with the online and everything you said, it was about that many. She's sitting there shaking her head, I don't know. I know it's a lot anyway, but they're all finding out they can do the same miracles that I have. And so that's my mission now, is to get the healing information out, teaching that technique. So we're still doing it online, but when I began, there was nothing. And I've watched everything evolve. Even 10 years ago, there wasn't that many people interested in metaphysics. They didn't know what you meant. You talk about the psychic or a medium, then it's always weird. But now it's being more and more accepted than it used to be. So I've watched it evolve slowly. And now with the new internet generation, I could really see a breakthrough. We are reaching the young people, and to them this is very normal and natural. Okay, so that's where I'm at this time, and we are starting a university in Arkansas that's going to be on metaphysical studies, and also we're going to be teaching every phase of natural healing and alternative medicine areas, because they told us to do this. And you always do what they tell you to do. Now it's going to happen, but they always tell you to do what they tell you to do. And they said, my work will be the cornerstone of the university, but we're going to teach everything that anybody could possibly want to know. So that's where we're at now. We're in that project and the movie projects. There's going to be TV series based on my work. So I have to stop these long overseas trips, because I've got to be focused at home on these other things. So the people keep saying, when are you going to quit? I'm not about to quit, it's just changing focus. There's a whole lot more things going on in my life. Okay, so that's how you got my history now. Let's go into your history, the history of your soul. Okay. This is all information that I've accumulated over many, many years, Many times in my work, I will get a piece of information from one client. And a week later, maybe on the other side of the world, we get a piece of information from another client that will hook it together. They say, we've got some more information for you, and it will flesh out the whole theory or concept. So it doesn't come through just one person, it comes through many, many different people. My job as a researcher, the reporter, investigator, is to put it all together like a gigantic puzzle. So part of it has been put together in the book of Between Death and Life. And in other books, we have more pieces of it. Okay. But I have people coming up and to meet my clients saying, what's my home planet? Where am I from? You don't have a home planet. You may have lived on another planet, but you don't have any planet that you come from. And that's what some of them don't understand. They want me to process that out. I always know what they're going to say anyway. But you do not have a home planet. You may have lived on other planets. All of you have. You've lived hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of lifetimes. Every shape, form you could possibly imagine, and some you cannot imagine. Because every life has a different lesson and experience it's trying to show you. So you have had lives before you came to Earth on other planets, other dimensions, where you've learned a lot of valuable information. But that's not who you are. You began long, long before that. After you complete your Earth school, then you may decide, I want to go to another planet and try the school there. So you're not done even when you finish Earth. That's what's so funny. This is nothing but a school. That's all it is. You don't get out till you graduate. You fail a grade, you got to take that grade over again. People would just get that through their head. As I tell them, you know, you're going to have to come back and do it again. I don't want to do that. And I said, you better work it out now, or you have to. It's the law of karma. You're all on the wheel of karma. But no, you did not come from any certain planet or any certain dimension. We all began at the same time with God. They always call him the source. Everything began with the source, with God. I've had so many people go back to God that we know what he is and what he looks like, and it's tremendous. They always see it as a huge bright light, a huge energy source. And they said when they're in it, it's like being in the sun, but it's not hot. But when they're back with God, it is just total love. You have never felt anything like that in your life. It's total love that you cannot even describe. It is so beautiful and wonderful. I had one woman who went back there, and she said she would like to go back home. They always say, when you go there, they say, I'm home, I'm home. She wanted to see what it was like, so she got it. And afterwards, she was crying and crying because it was so beautiful. Once they see it, they don't want to leave. It is so extremely beautiful and full of love. And afterwards, the SC is what I call it. The subconscious part is the one that communicates and talks to us. I call it the subconscious, even though it's not like the subconscious that the psychiatrist defined. That's a childish part of your mind. But I didn't know what to call it, so I called it the subconscious. They said, we don't care what you call us. We don't have a name anyway. We'll work with you. But we wanted to know why it showed her that. And they said she wanted to see it, but we just gave her a taste of it. If we showed her what it was really like, she would not want to come back into this body. That's how tremendous it is. Total love. And when they're there, they don't want to leave. Everybody is together And that's where we all started. We were all one with God. A huge energy mass. But God became curious. He wanted to know more. So the way he did this, he burst out. Now, some people call it the Big Bang Theory. He burst out into millions and millions of pieces, little tiny dots of light. Some of these dots of light became galaxies. Some of them became planets. Some of them became universes. But the majority were your own individual little souls. When I take people back to what they really, really are, all they see is a tiny little speck of light. That's what you really are. That's your soul, is a tiny speck of light. They shot out in all directions, and God said, "Go, my children, and learn. Learn everything there is to learn. Have every experience there is to have. Then bring it back to me." And I asked them one time, well, what does God do with all this information once we bring it back? He creates other universes. He creates more. It seems to be the main thing is to gather information and then to bring it back to God. Everything we do, everything you say, everything you see is like in a gigantic computer. And it's all adding information to the source. So you go back, it's all dumped into this gigantic computer. Does this make sense? Because sometimes people think this is kind of a out-of-the-way explanation for it, but to me it makes perfect sense of how you all began. But God is total love. And that's where you all began. Started on your journeys. You all went different directions. Some people went to other planets. Some people went to other dimensions. Some people decided to take on Earth School, which you are right now. Your soul decided to do Earth School. Earth is the most difficult planet in the universe. The hardest, densest, heaviest planet to live on. I really don't like it when I say this, but they say we're the bottom feeders. That's how dense the energy is here. The bottom of the barrel. And she said, I don't like you to say that. But they say when you decide you're going to go to Earth, they're very proud of you. Because they know what you're going to take on. They know how difficult it's going to be. It's not going to be an easy task. And they always say, are you really sure you want to do this? And he said, yeah, I think I'm going to take on the Earth School. It sounds like it'd be interesting. But it's the most difficult you could possibly ever take on. But you decided you wanted to do it. Life is all about experiences and lessons. That's all it is. And many people have everybody has bad things that happen in their life. But what did you learn from it? If you learned one thing, that was the reason for you having that lifetime and that lesson. That's all it was for, was that one little thing. But some people, my clients, will say, well, I didn't learn anything, it was just a horrible experience. Then guess what? You got to do it again. You didn't learn anything, you got to do it again. Same people, same situation. That's the law of karma. You don't get out of anything. You don't burn it, you take it a class again. So, you all decided you want to take on Earth School. And believe me, they're trying to talk you out of it on the other side. Do you realize what you're signing on for? It's going to be so hard. And they said, yeah, I want to do it, I want to do it. They said, all right, we will be there to help you, but it's not going to be easy. Because the Earth School is a long school. Once you sign on for it, you don't get out until you have completed the whole school. Like going to college. You don't get out of it. You can take the same. They said, we don't care how many times you want to take that class over. Doesn't matter to us, but you want to take the same experience for eternity? Or when are you going to get it? When are you going to learn it? It's up to you. Otherwise, you can just keep spinning around and around doing the same thing over and over again. Doesn't matter to them. You have eternity to learn even just one lesson. But do you want to take eternity? Or do you want to learn it and move on when you can get out of it? Because when you get out of it, then you go back to God, or you go to another planet to learn their lessons. Every planet has different lessons, different rules and regulations. Earth is very, very unique. There are many things about Earth that are nowhere else in the universe. That's what makes us very different. But when you sign on for the Earth School, it's a long school. You don't just sign on and become a human. That's the last thing you do. You have a lot of other lifetimes you have to experience before you become human. Because everything has something to learn. It just doesn't suddenly pop into a human being. The first thing you would have to do, I'm doing it linear, even though they say time doesn't exist. I'm putting it in a linear fashion. I think it's easier to our minds to understand it that way. Now, all of these things I discovered over the 35 years. I get one and I get another, and I said, what's going on here? But then I began to see patterns forming in all of this. First, you have to know what it's like to be air. Gas, air. This will show you everything is alive. Everything has consciousness. They said one of the biggest lessons I could teach anyone is that everything has consciousness. Everything is alive. But first you have to be air, gas. One of the first sessions I ever had that established that was a man went back to Earth in the beginning of its formation, when the volcanoes were still erupting, lava was flowing, and there was all this gunk in the air. There was all the sulfur and ammonia in the air. Life couldn't form yet, even plant life, because the atmosphere wasn't right. It had to be corrupt. So this man went back to who would be part of the atmosphere. And his job, along with many others, was to help clean the ammonia out of the atmosphere so that life could begin to develop. So see, he had an important job, even though we wouldn't. I said, he's like a gas, and I'm talking to him. He has intelligence. He's answering me. But now I know I knew this all the time, but in the beginning it was like, what is this? But everything has an importance. It all has a job. I've had many people go back to when they were the water. And there was one there in the beginning of life on Earth where they had to form the very first drops of water by condensing them out of the atmosphere. The drop by drop by drop eventually became pools of water, then it became rivers, and it became the oceans. So everything has importance. Okay, first you have to be air, gas. Then you have to be rocks and dirt. You don't know how many people I've had be rocks. And when they're a rock, they'll say, life is so slow. Oh, it takes a long time. I had one woman went back to when she was a rock, and afterwards I always asked the SC, why did you show that to them? And they said, she thinks she doesn't have any freedom now. Imagine what life was like when she was a rock. But those kind of lives, they can hardly wait to get out of there and try something new and different. The same with the dirt, everything is alive. I had a businessman who was part of the dirt, and he's watching all the little bugs and worms crawling around. But you have to know what these things are like. Then after that, you have to become plants. And I've had people, they don't realize all these things are alive and you have all been them. Think how much differently you would treat nature and our ecology and the environment if you realized, I've been that. I'm just harming myself. If they understood that, they don't understand that it's not two separate things here, it's all us. So, we've had people be plants. Imagine what it would be like to be an ear of corn. I've had people do that, and they're fine, except a cow may come along and eat you. One person said it was so beautiful to be a rose, but that life didn't last very long because the rose wilted. But we've all known what it was like to be plants in one way or the other, to what it would feel like to be a blade of grass. I've had many, many be trees. They love being trees. One was a redwood tree. You know, in the States, those are the oldest trees in the world. And he was part of that for, it seemed like, forever. And he had his whole family, all the other trees were their family. But, you know, eventually, even a tree that old will eventually die. But he lived the whole life experiencing what it was like to be a tree and have the camaraderie of all the other trees around him. And I found out that all the trees can communicate with each other. It's like a mind to mind. They will communicate to each other. All the plants will too. Maybe this will put you thinking in a different direction. But then you're going to have to know, what is it like to be an animal? See the progression? What we think is something dumb and unintelligent, it actually has much more intelligence than you think it does as it progresses upward. What would it be like to be an animal? What would it be like to be a wolf and run? What would it be like to be a bird and fly? I've had people be all of these things. And when I get somebody as an animal, I want to know, what is that like? How does that animal think? How does it feel? What's different about that animal, that insect, that is different than us? I've had people be spiders and ants. And you know, spiders and ants both have a lot of eyes. And I asked them, how can you see? And they say, well, imagine looking at a department store where you have all these TV sets. And when you see movement, you focus on that one and shut out the others. That's how they see. But they're able to do that. The fly, the same way, it has a faceted eye. They focus on movement in that one part and see that. A lot of these things I don't think the scientists have ever known. But I've had many be bugs and worms and spiders and ants. They're quite remarkable creatures. And bees. But you've all been there, done that. You lived that life. But I think one of the most fascinating is the birds. I had somebody be an eagle. And they were perched on a mountaintop. He had a nest there with a little baby chick in the nest. And he was peering out over the valley below. And I wanted to know, how do you see? Because you know, a lot of these birds hunt at night, like the owls. I wanted to know how you see. They said, make sure I get this right. About 4 below them. And the one sees a rabbit running. The minute he sees motion, his attention is drawn to that rabbit. When that happens, the whole field of vision becomes red, like an infrared. It's picking up motion. And he said, if he's not hungry, then he ignores it and the vision goes back to regular. But if they're hunting at night and they see movement, the field of vision becomes green. Isn't that like the goggles that the soldiers wear? These science fiction movies you see where they're looking and the vision is green. That's where, I wonder if that's where it came from. Because they have no way of knowing that is how a bird really sees. But it's seeing things in a different field of vision than we are. So to me, that's amazing. I want to know these things. And of course, what it's like to be a dog and a cat. Cats are very interesting. They're different than the others. When they first look at you, they don't see you. They see an energy form. And they have to wait a minute before they can identify what that energy form is. How many times have you watched a cat staring at something you can't see? Because they're seeing energy forms that are invisible to us. When my husband was in Vietnam, I had a Siamese, and we lived in a 2-story house. And every night when the kids were in bed, he'd sit at the bottom of the steps watching something upstairs. He's sitting there, you know how their tails going like this, you know they're watching something. Hey, give me the creeps. I said, oh, go catch a mouse and stop doing that. But he was seeing something that we couldn't see. So they're seeing energy forms. Dogs don't do that. Dogs go by smell. So, to me, this is fascinating. It's wanting to have more knowledge about life, about everything. I can't even remember how many types of animals we have. I had one be a little yellow worm. I'm going to take this jacket off. It's hot up here. Whew. I fell the other day in my hotel room, skinned my arm, banged my knee real bad. I've got a huge bruise on it. That's why I've been limping around here. Okay, now it's cooler. Okay. But I had someone be a little yellow worm. These are all things you wouldn't think had any intelligence, could not possibly be alive, but believe me, they think and live just like the rest of us. And you take them through an entire lifetime. All the experience they have in that lifetime. So, after you've done all of that and you finally have gone through all the different parts you could possibly be, then you come to the human. But believe me, each time along the way you could fail a grade. Maybe you weren't a very good rock. Maybe you weren't a very good plant. You may have to repeat that life again. So it's the same in everyone. It's like classes. And you have grades, and you're graded on these classes. And I'm going to get to this next, because between each lifetime, you go back to the spirit side. And that's when you do a life review and go over your lifetime. So even if you're a bug, you have a life review. May sound weird, but I had somebody be an ant. And he had a very interesting life. He was part of a colony, and they lived in a hollow log in the woods by a stream. And he goes through the whole lifetime, and he's always out hunting for food to bring back to the colony. And one time the river rises, and it took the log and made it float down the river. And he was panicking because he'd been out hunting for food, and he's trying to find where's the rest of them. So when he finally got up with him, it's the whole story of this little ant. And then when he finally dies, because I can't always take everybody through the whole life and through the death. So when he finally dies, he said he just sees his body just lay there and it doesn't have any energy, it just stops moving. So then, I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but I'm going to be talking about this more in this other part. Every time you die, you are never, ever alone. Someone will always come to help you, to take you where you're supposed to go. He could be your guide, guardian angel, but it'll be somebody to take you where you're supposed to go. Well, the little ant is laying there, he's dead, and his soul is out of it. And he's watching, and this big, giant white ant comes up. That's his, I call them the greeters. They come to greet you. He's going to take him to the other side. It's something he would identify with, big, giant white ant. So he takes him on the other side. You always have to go before the board of elders. The masters and the guides and the elders, they're the ones that do the life review, which we'll get into more later. So he's standing there, this little bitty ant in front of this whole board. We're going to do a life review, and I'm thinking, what in the world would a life review of an ant be? And he's standing there looking at him, and they say, okay, all right, you did good. You learned some valuable lessons. You learned cooperation, which you did, cooperating and working together as a unit. So that was a valuable lesson. Now you go on to the next life, you'll learn something else. But see, if you don't learn, you'd have to repeat. But now you're going to go to the next life. You'll learn another kind of lesson. So that's what a life review is all about. So anyway, every time you cross over after you die, you have a life review. Okay, you've gone through all of these lives, and now you're finally going to get to the point where you can become human. I really feel very sorry for you. It's so complicated and hard to be a human being. But once you become human, you also have to be everything. That's what life is all about. The first part, you have to be everything. You got to know what everything is all about. That's why you have to have all those other parts. You have to know all of that before you finally become a human. Now you become a human, you've got to learn everything, which is not easy. It's why you can't possibly live one time and learn it all. It's impossible. So you become a human. You have to be male and female many, many times. And I usually have a man in the audience will raise his hand. What do you mean? I've always been a male. What would you learn if you had always been one sex through thousands and thousands of years? You wouldn't learn very much, would you? You have to learn what it's like to be both. There must always be a balance. What it's like to be on both sides of everything. So you have to be a male and a female many, many times. I found one of the causes of homosexuality is because the person was one sex too many times. And they were told, now you're going to go back and be the other sex. I don't want to do that. I've always been a male. I've always been a female. But you're not learning. You're not balancing. You have to go back and be the other sex. If it's their first time, they have great difficulty with it, adjusting. You can see why they would. Because all of a sudden you're a different sex, you're thinking different, you have different emotions, different feelings. I've had clients who say, I feel like a woman trapped in a man's body. Now, many people try to have sex change operations. That doesn't do anything. You see what that does? Throws them back a grade. They have not done that lesson, so they're going to have to do it over again. But you learn a lot by being both. You have to know the balance, male and female. Then you have to live on every continent in the world. You have to be every religion in the world, every race in the world. Can you see why? You can't be just one thing. You have to know what it's like to be everything. And you can imagine what happens if somebody hates another religion or they hate another race in this lifetime. What's going to happen? Next time around, you are the very thing that you're prejudiced against. Because you got to know what it was like to be that race or that religion. That's the way it works. That's the law. So if anything you're really against, you're going to have to be that thing. Now, I've had this happen so many times in my work, where somebody really prejudiced, and well, they've been in another life, they were prejudiced, and they come back in this lifetime as the sex, the race, or the religion they were prejudiced against. This is teaching us you cannot judge, you cannot have any prejudice. You must love everybody, even if they're totally unlovable. But that's what it's all about. Before you're finished, you have to learn all those important lessons. And even if somebody harms you, you have to be able to forgive them. Because it's, what did you learn from that situation? What were they trying to teach you? Does this make sense to you? To me, it's a very logical plan. I'm glad somebody thought of it. But you have to be rich and poor. And sometimes being rich is not a blessing, it's a curse, really. And this happened so many times in the past lives we've done with people. It depends on what do you do with the money. That's the thing. And if you're poor, what did you do last life that caused you to have to experience the lack of money? You really look at it, everything has a reason. Never by chance. That's why Earth School is so difficult, it's so hard. And you have to be murdered and be a murderer. You gotta know how everything is like. I have some clients that come and say, I'm afraid to do the hypnosis. What if I find out I killed someone? I said, well, join the club. You all had to do it so you would know what it was like. How better to know what not to do than to do it? You would not have any examples if you didn't know what not to do. Does that make sense? And I've had so many people who have killed someone in another lifetime, and that same person is in their life now. And they wonder why they don't get along, why they're having all these problems. They have to bring them back into this lifetime with you so you can work out the same problems you had in the other lifetime. I've had it happen so many times, husband and wife aren't getting along, find out one of them killed the other in another lifetime. That's what's causing the problem now. I had one woman, she brought her 18-year-old daughter in, and she said, fix her, all we do is fight. We don't get along at all. You gotta do something with her. And I said, first of all, I can't do that. She has to want the session. Oh, she wants it because she doesn't like this fighting either. It turned out it was more the mother than it was the daughter. But there was constant arguments, and they just never got along at all. And the girl couldn't leave home yet. She was finishing up college. So I had her there without the mother. I never had the other people involved. And we took her back to a past life where they were husband and wife, not mother and daughter. And the mother was the husband, and the daughter was the wife. And the husband thought the wife was messing around on him, playing around, so he killed her. You see, perfect justice. And it makes perfect sense. They had to come back now to be together again to learn how to live together. And the mother still wasn't working it out. So that's why they were doing all the fighting. And when it was over with, and she's saying, I don't know how to handle this. What am I going to tell my mother when she comes to get me? First she's going, no, what did you find out? Because I tell them, I give them a recording, but I said, you don't have to show it to anybody. That's your property. But she's going to want to know what happened. I said, oh, just tell her, Mom, you killed me. But if you don't get along with somebody, you can imagine this may go back to what it is. And they said, what did they say? With murderers, because you killed me, I don't turn around and kill you in the next life. That just keeps the karma going, keeps the wheel going, doesn't solve anything. So what they do, they said, let's do it the soft way. Just like this, you live with the person you killed and have to work it out. Sometimes you have to devote your life to that person and you have no life of your own because you took their life. Does this make sense? There was we have Dr. Bill in the States. Do you have him over here? Dr. Bill? He's like a psychiatrist. It's a very popular daytime show. And people come on there with their problems. There was one man, these people had triplets. And it was the mother that had them. This father married her to take care of these because the triplets were blind and deaf. They couldn't communicate, and it was very, very hard to take care of them. You can imagine what it would be like. And the mother had her hands full trying to take care of these 3 children. I think they were about 3 years old when they appeared on the show. Because they don't even know you're there. They just, they're existing in a vacuum. And so they were interviewing the father, and he said, I married her to help her out, help her take care of the kids. But he said, I can't take it anymore. He said, I devoted my whole life to these kids. I have no life of my own. And it's awful. The minute it came through my head loud and clear, why was that? He must have killed all 3 of them in another lifetime. He's paying back a huge amount of karma. Of course, he doesn't know this part, but he agreed to that because you can give up your whole life to taking care of one person. You can't follow your dreams. You can't follow your own life because you're devoting it to one person because you took their life. Maybe because times are speeded up, that's why he had 3 in 1. That was a huge dose. I don't know what he did to them, but that would have been interesting to follow through and find out. I've had people go back to wars where they have killed many, many people. And they said, oh, you're going to have to pay it back. But sometimes, I think it depends on, they don't want to be in war, then that makes a difference. And if they delight in killing people, see the difference. It has your attitude. But I think it'd be different if you had more karma on you. But I've had it be to where they killed a lot of people, and then afterwards they say, well, you've got to pay this back. Doesn't mean you have to pay each one of these back, because maybe you slaughtered a whole village or something. back in the ancient times. But you're going to have to pay back same situation, and same groups will come into your life. And sometimes it can take several lifetimes to pay back a huge debt like that. But I think if you start looking at problems you're having, they could very well go back to other lifetimes. We're just thinking we're the victim in all of this. We're the one that's being picked on. But there's a whole lot more to it than you think there is. They tell me, because they said the next life, he will lose his life by a group of people because he took their lives. And in one, I had the succession like that. In that life, he had a happy family, and he was killed by a bunch of robbers in that lifetime. And they said it was because he had taken a similar group away from their family by killing them. And now he had to know what it was like to be taken from his family. Goes around, comes around. Don't get out of anything. I always tell people the best way to get out of this is to forgive. Don't hold it, don't carry it over. You've got to forgive anyone that you're upset with. Otherwise, you're carrying it over, you got to do it again. Some people say, well, I don't want anything to do with them. I want them out of my life totally. I don't want to come back to the same people. And I said, you better handle it now, or that's the law of karma. You've got to do it again. Okay. But can you see there's a whole lot more to this than you think there is? Church thinks you live one time. That's not drop in the bucket. Okay. My clock's faster than the one up there.
It says 1/4 there.
1/4? But we want to stop for a break before I go into the second part. Does that be okay? We do it now? I was going to wait till 3:30. The second part, I'm going to tell you what happens when you die, what it's like, and where you go on the other side, and the whole process. Let's have a break then. Okay. All right, well now I've told you all the sequence of Earth School. So now I'm going to talk to you about what it's like to die and where you go afterwards. Okay. Because so many people are afraid of death, you don't realize you've already died thousands and thousands of times, every way you can possibly imagine. That's another part of your lessons. You're going to find out how it's like, what it's like to be murdered, to die in all kinds of different ways. I've had people die in every way you can possibly think of. Doesn't hurt them at all because you can't hurt the soul. Okay. But they're always afraid of the unknown. That's what it's afraid of. They're afraid they're going into something that's unknown, not realizing all you're doing is going home. You're beautiful and wonderful, and you've done this process thousands of times, but you just forget when you come to Earth. Okay, let's start there then. What's it like to die? Okay. The first thing that happens when someone dies is they feel very cold. And the next instant, they find themselves standing next to the body. They're out of the body that fast. They said it's just like getting up from that chair and sitting down in the other chair. It's so quick and easy. So you're out of the body that fast, and the person might be standing there next to the body looking down at it. And I had one woman, she was an old woman, but she died of natural causes. She looked down and she said, "Gee, I didn't know I looked that bad." She said, "It's so good to be out of there. To be tied to that old thing anymore." There's so many restrictions when you're in the body. When you're out of it, it's just total freedom. So believe me, they don't mind dying at all. It's a good experience. Once they're out of that body, they're not afraid. They don't even care anything about the body. Because they said, now I can go anywhere I want. All I have to do is think it and I'm there. It's wonderful. I'm not tied to that thing anymore. Because when you're in the body, you're very restricted. But once you're out of it, you can go anywhere, you can do anything you want. So the first thing after you die, if you realize you're dead, now, you'll never, ever alone. It's another fear people have. You're never alone. You're never alone all through your life either, but you don't realize that. When you were born, you have a guide or guardian angel, whatever you want to call it. It has many different names all over the world. I prefer guide, but some people like guardian angel. Of course, in Asia, they would call it something else. But you have one assigned to you when you're born. Their job is to be with you your whole entire life. They're there to help you and guide you, protect you. It's their job. So when you die, you may have friends and relatives come to meet you. I call this the greeter. There's always someone comes. I call it the greeter. And it may be a relative that you love that's come to meet you and take you. If not, your guide will always be there to take you where you're supposed to go, so you don't have to ever worry about being alone. You can't possibly get lost anyway. So, but your guide is also there to help you, and they keep saying they're there to help you and assist you. That's their job, is to help you all through life. If you need anything, if you want anything, all you have to do is tell them, and they'll do it for you. They'll go and get it. They'll make sure you have whatever you want. But so many people think they're all alone. They don't have anybody. But they said, we're here to assist. But if you don't ask us for assistance, we don't have anyone to assist. Because you have free will. They can never go against your free will. So if you need anything, you just have to be quiet and ask them. I need help. This is what I need. Boy, do they love that. They're being acknowledged, and they will take it and run with it. They'll do things you can't believe to get you what you want. What you don't understand is the universe is there to help you. Its job is to make sure you get what you want out of life. But you have to ask. Because of free will, they can't just come in and do anything. But anyway, when you die, the greeter is there to help you once you're out of the body. And they're going to take you where you're supposed to go. First thing they take you is usually down the tunnel. There's all kinds of ways. I've heard so many different near-death experiences of different ways that they go. But you've probably heard them too. That anyone who's, how many have had a near-death experience? There's always been a lot of people in the audience. There's probably more of you than that, really. And you know, when you have a near-death experience, you always go toward a white light. Thing is, you never reach that white light. You're turned around and sent back for whatever reason. Because a near-death experience, you don't really die. You go so far and then you got to come back. But in a real death, you go all the way. So you go toward this beautiful white light, and this is a huge energy source. And when you go through that white light, your silver cord is dissolved at that time. Now you know you all have a silver cord, don't you? The silver cord connects you to your body your entire lifetime. And so somebody asked me a while ago about dreams of flying. Every night you go out of your body. You never stay in your body. Every night you're off flying, you're off having all kinds of adventures. Because the body's what gets tired. The soul never gets tired. Imagine be awful bored sitting around waiting for the body to wake up so you can get on with what you've got to do. So the soul doesn't get tired. So while the body is sleeping, you're off having all kinds of adventures. All over the world, seeing anything you want, other planets, other dimensions, or going to the spirit side and talking to your guides and the masters and discussing your plans. You're off having all kinds of adventures. But you usually don't remember doing this unless you're having dreams of flying, or dreams of being in strange, unfamiliar places. That's the only way you will remember it. Otherwise, this is a common thing that happens every night. And then toward morning, it's time for us to come back into our body, so you're reeled in with the silver cord. You're brought back into your body when it's time to wake up and continue your life. Okay. So whenever you go through this huge energy source, that is when the silver cord is dissolved. At that point, you cannot go back to the body again. Up until that time you can, and that's what the near-death experiences are. They go so far and then they're brought back. They'll say, it's not time. You got to go back and finish something. It's not time for you to go yet. But once that silver cord has been dissolved, the connection with the body is gone. And you can't return. So after that happens, then you have to continue on the other side. And the first thing they will do, the readers will take you before the board. And the board is the masters, the elders, and your guides, guardian angels, all these people that know you extremely well. They know what you were supposed to do when you came in. They know your plan. They know your contracts. They know everything about you. There are no secrets. So they're sitting up there, and they're going to do a life review over you. It's important to remember, when you get over there, there's no one sitting on a throne who's going to judge you and throw you into hell. First thing, there isn't any hell. There isn't any hell, there's no devil. It's hot there? Okay. There's nobody sitting on a throne that's going to judge you and throw you into hell. It doesn't happen. You judge yourself. And there's no harsher judge than you yourself. They show you your life that you have lived. They show you everything you have done, everything you have said, every thought that you have thought. And there's no judgment from them at all. They're just showing it to you. You look at it, and then you usually say, I shouldn't have done that, I shouldn't have said that. Because while they're showing you the life review, they're also showing you how it affected everyone else that you ever came into contact with. You're getting it from their viewpoint of the other person, how they felt when you said something or when you did something. And you say, I didn't know I hurt them like that. I shouldn't have said that, I shouldn't have done it. But now you're getting to see what it's really like. And you don't get out of this. You have to have the full life review. And that's where karma comes into play. He said, I shouldn't have done that. I got to make up for that. I got to make amends for that because I created karma with that person by doing something I shouldn't have done. That's what karma is. There's also good karma, but you're the one that judges yourself. You're the one that decides how you're going to repay it and what you're going to do to repay it. That's your decision. They'll help you with it, but you still got to do it yourself. Now, there's a whole lot of places on the spirit side that you can go to, but first they're always going to do the life review, and then they'll decide how long you're going to stay over there, or how quick do you have to come back according to everything else that's going to be worked out. One place that some people go to is called the resting place. In the resting place, there are no sounds, nothing, no colors or anything. You're totally without. Those are for people who have maybe died very traumatically, or they've had a very bad life. Not bad, I mean very, there is no bad, there is no good. But I mean, uncomfortable life. Let's say they've had a hard experience, so life has been hard on them. So they need time to rest. That happens, you're sent to the resting place for however long it takes you to recover from the death or whatever it is. Then you're set back on the wheel again. It's always up to you. It can take a year, it can take hundreds of years until you're ready to process. You don't get out of anything. But the resting place is a good place to just get off for a while and relax. Okay. Now, I found 3 different places that you can go to when you cross over. The first one is called the lower astral. I don't think anybody here is going to go to the lower astral. That's not the place you want to be. The lower astral, those are beings who have done terrible things in this life. And you know, they are not going to be able to get right back on the wheel again because they have to have time over there to resolve what they did wrong. But those are people who have done bad things, and a lot of times when they die, they don't even know they have died. All they know is physical. They just know physical sensations, and that's what they want to get back into. Like some of them, they were shown who were drug addicts. And they die, they don't know they've died. And all they can think of is, I want to get those sensations again. So they'll be wandering around in the spirit side, finding people who are on drugs, who are doing things like that, so they can have the same experience by osmosis, by being around them. You can't really take the drugs, but they want to be around those kind of people, because that's how they have made their life. It's such a terrible state. So they stay on the lower astral. And many of them don't know they've died, and they're just wandering around, lost. And the greeter will be there to take them where they're supposed to go, but they don't pay any attention to them because they don't think they're dead. After a while, though, they said it gets boring. I can't get the same sensations I did while I was alive. It's not any fun anymore. Then they begin to realize they're not in a body. And at that point, then the greeter take them where they're supposed to go. And they have to go through a rehabilitation program before they'll be allowed to come back. You can't come back that fast. You've got to figure out, why did I put myself into this situation? What did I do with my life that made things turn out so badly? So you don't come back right away. That's the lower astral. I don't think anybody here is going to be going there. Okay. The other place is the middle astral, which most people usually end up there, especially the church people. That's the version. That's the church's version of heaven. It's very beautiful. There's mountains and hills and all these different types of houses. And there's usually beautiful flower gardens and a beautiful lake. And they have the most beautiful flowers you could possibly imagine. The colors are unbelievable. Because they said, I said, well, is it like a reflection of Earth's flowers? They said, oh no, Earth's reflection. Earth's flowers are a very poor reflection of what it's really about. Over there, the colors are so vibrant and strong. They said, if you could imagine a rose, that would never die. The flowers, the petals would never fall off. A perfect flower. That's what's in these gardens. They're just beautiful. And there's music in the air. It's a very beautiful place. And of course, when you cross over, they think, well, they want to be with their family and their loved ones. So if you want to have a house like you just came from and live with your relatives that have crossed over, you can have that. That's what I'm saying. It's like the church's version of heaven. If you want to live in a castle, they'll give you that. It's up to you. You can create anything you want. If you want a castle or if you want a house like you just left. And you think, wow, this is wonderful. I'm going to be here for eternity. Except it doesn't. That's not the way it works. But they're enjoying themselves. So then eventually somebody comes knocking at the door. Time for you to go up before the board. We got to plan your next life. No, I'm happy here. This is perfectly fine. I want to stay right here. But you can't do it because you have to go back and repay things. You don't get out of it until you're done. So then they have to go up before the board and they got to figure out what they have to do the next time. That's the middle astral, which is beautiful, but not quite what people think it's going to be. Then there's the upper astral, which is my favorite place of all. The upper astral is where all the schools are, and the universities up there, and the libraries are tremendous. There's all knowledge of everything that ever was and everything that ever will be is in those libraries. I've gotten a lot of my information from those libraries. A person will go there and ask the librarian to find us different books on different things. But the libraries are beautiful. They have the tapestry room. If you read my books, it's in between death and life about these different parts. About the tapestry room, which is a tapestry of time. And they have one part is the healing chamber. If you die of a serious illness, you're sent there first. And they show long lines of people going in. And it's a beautiful domed building. And on the top of the dome are all of these different colored gems. And the light shines through these. And it makes a beautiful, different colored circles on the floor. So people are led in there. There's lots of guides in all these places. Guardian of the library, a guardian of the tapestry room, a guardian of the healing temple. They take you one by one, and you stand in the center, and you're washed over by this tremendous light energy, and it washes away any residue that you're carrying over from the physical life. So it's beautiful. They told me I could do a great service for people by telling them they could go there anytime you want while you're in the physical body. If you want healing, if you want help, you can go there too. Because it describes what it looks like. I said, how will they know the difference? They say they see your silver cord trailing behind you. They know you're still alive. But you can have healing by standing in the healing center. But I like the upper astral because of all of the different parts and the wonderful. They have classes and schools. And the library is my favorite place. But anyway, these are all places you can go to. But here again, you'll only stay there for as long as you need to. because you have to come back and pay back. That's what the life review is about, and you decide, well, I shouldn't have done this, I've got to come back and repay it. So before you come back, you meet with your board and make a plan that you're going to try to accomplish. You hope you will accomplish when you come back. You know, they say best laid plans of mice and men. You come in with all your plans, then you get in here, it doesn't always work out that way because human beings are involved, the other humans. So that's why they don't expect you to do it all in one lifetime. They said, don't try. Some people come back, they say, I want to do it all. They want to take a whole lot of karma on all at one time. And they say it's not a good idea. You pie your plate too full. It's like going to college and not leaving any room for extracurricular activities. You just burn yourself out. So it's better if you said, you just do what you can. That's all you're expected to do. You can always finish the rest next time. But if some of them are determined, I'm going to do it all now, well then, they'll say, well, we'll help you, but you're going to have a hard time. That's what's happening to a lot of people. They took on too much. I don't want to come back again. I want to get it finished. So they took on too much in one lifetime. But you make a plan of what you hope to accomplish when you come back the next time. And you make contracts. Suppose you hurt someone in that last lifetime and you think, well, I know I shouldn't have done that. I got to repay that. You make contracts with them to come back and meet them again. Oh, this is where it's so funny because they will help you with these contracts, the other souls. When I've taken people through the death sequence on their past lives, they get to the other side. Some of them look back and they'll say, it was just a play. I see all the actors on stage playing their parts. I see the actors in the wings getting ready to come on stage to play their parts. It was just a play. Well, while I was there, it was so important and I got so involved in it. But now that I'm over here, it was like a twinkle of an eye. It wasn't real. That's what you got to remember. Life is an illusion. It's just a game. It's just a play. It's just an illusion. We take it too seriously. We don't realize the power we have. So, you are the producer, director, and actor in your own play. You're also the script writer, but the script isn't written. It's written as it goes along. That's why you can change it at any time if you don't like the way the script is going. That's how much power you have. Does that make sense, or is that kind of a startling new revelation that everything is an illusion? Sometimes when I'm getting more longer, complicated lectures, we're getting into these convoluted universe material. You want to go further with this. This building we're in didn't even exist until we collectively decided to come here today. And collectively, we created it with our minds. When we leave, it disappears again. Does that bend your mind a little? You say, what have I done to your world?
You forgot to recently see with us in our minds.
That's why I say the convoluted universe books are for people who want their minds bent like pretzels. Because we're always coming up with weird concepts you haven't even thought about. But if everything is an illusion, everything is a hologram, you created it and you can change it. But When you look back at your life and do the life review and you're talking to all these people that were in it with you, you're saying, well, we didn't do such a good job last time, did we? Let's go back and do it again. This time you be the husband, I'll be the wife. Or you be the mother, I'll be the child. You can switch roles around any way you want because it's just a play. The person in your life right now that may be causing you the most problems, your biggest enemy, may have been your greatest friend on the other side. And while you're making your plans, he'll say, hey, I'm going to play the bad guy this time. Yeah, okay. So he decides to play the villain. Every play has to have a villain, a bad guy. And when you die again, they'll say, I was a pretty good bad guy, didn't I? I played a good part there. Pretty good at my role. In that case, they don't incur any karma because they've agreed to do it to help you out. So a lot of times the one that we really can't get along with is the one that's our greatest teacher, if you really look at it. But you can change the roles around any way you want. And you make a contract with that person, oh, you're going to be my mother, or you're going to be my daughter, or you'll be my friend, and I'll meet you here on this street corner. We'll bump into each other, and then after that, we'll end up being friends. Nothing is by accident. It's always all set up, and you put it all in place before you come back. But when we get back here, and you're going through the birth process, the veil comes down. That's the veil Julia was talking about. The veil of forgetfulness. But I asked them one time, wouldn't it be a lot easier if we knew why we were here? We knew our purpose, our plan. And if we knew our contracts with these other people, wouldn't that be easier? I said, no, it wouldn't be a test if you knew the answers. So you've got to come in, the veil comes down, you forget. You know, we're the only planet in the universe that does that. I told you we were unique. There's many things we only do on Earth that we don't do anywhere else in the universe. Now the other beings have these problems. They remember everything. But we're the only one that forgets when we come in. So we have to stumble our way back. We forget we came from God. We forget this whole thing is a game. We forget we set it up to circumstances. And we're just stumbling our way back, trying to find our way back to what it's all about. So it takes a long time. So it's important now, things are speeding up. People are understanding more and they're understanding quicker than they used to. I was talking about the internet generation. They're learning much faster than they used to. That's important. We're not going to be stumbling around in the dark as much as we used to do. So we're finally beginning to change it all around. But you learn so much by coming to Earth. But over there, like on the upper astral, where all knowledge is, and I said, well, you have all this knowledge over there. Why can't we just learn it all there? Why do we have to come back to Earth, which is so hard? They said because it's like book learning versus hands-on learning. You can go to college and take courses like chemistry. You can read the book on chemistry, but do you really know it until you go into the laboratory and start mixing chemicals? You have to have hands-on. Or you can read about how to tear a car engine apart, but do you really learn anything until you go and tear it apart yourself and take the pieces out and put them back together? That's book learning versus hands-on learning. That's the difference. So when you come to Earth, it's hands-on and it's very difficult. And they always say, well, you know, they discourage them to come back to Earth and they'll say, oh, I can handle that. With book learning, oh, emotions are easy. Love, hate, Jealousy, I can handle all that. It doesn't seem too hard to do. Easy to say that, but then you get in the situation, hands-on, where you're experiencing those emotions and those feelings. It's not that easy. You're getting the feedback from everybody else. You see the difference between book learning and hands-on? That's why it's very important for you to come to Earth to learn these things. But you could stay over there, but it would be eternities later before you would finally get it all. And you still wouldn't learn the relationship between people like you do when you come to Earth. So it's a complicated process here. I know there's a lot more I needed to say here, but if I think of it, it'll come up. But you see, it's a lot more complicated than you think it is. Part of your plan you make also when you come back into a life, part of that plan is your exit plan. You plan how you're going to exit, how you're going to die. Nobody ever dies until it's their time to die. That's why it doesn't do any good to try to keep somebody alive when their time has already come. They decide how they're going to die, when they're going to die. And nothing can change that. I found you can delay it a little bit if you want something you want to do in there, but otherwise, you've already set it into motion. This is when it's going to happen. This is how it's going to happen. Many people die in groups. As you know, you've seen that on the news. They decide to come in together. We're all going to die in this tsunami, or we'll all die in this earthquake together, because they've all been together in other lives and decided, let's come in a group, we're going to go out in a group. You know, like even with a lot of situations you hear when one or two people they didn't die because they didn't get there for some reason, because they weren't supposed to be there. It's really amazing how all of it is so planned out, is so precise. We're left in the dark because we don't understand the whole process. But it's very beautiful and very clear once you understand it. I can't figure out why the churches don't teach these things. To me, they make so much sense. Instead, they make you think when you die, you're going to hell. Or you're going to have all these other horrible things happen to you. Anyway, but don't get me started on that. Okay. I know there's a lot more I can go into, and it probably will be brought up when we get into questions here. But there is a lot of things. Okay, let's go to the questions. Now, we need another mic for him, or what? Past lives and what happens when you die and what it's like on the other side. There's a whole lot of material in all of that, if that's okay. Okay, well, I know most of you know who I am. Is that true? Is there anybody here who doesn't know me? Good, good. For about the last 5 years when I've been giving my lectures, things have been changing in the audience. Used to be, you know, everybody knew me. And now we have an audiences where we fill auditoriums in some places. And people are always saying, we didn't know who you were. We just found you last week. And I said, I haven't been hiding. I've been doing this work for 45 years. And my books have been out for over 30 years, so I haven't been hiding. Well, what's happening, it's the internet generation. And most of it is these young people are finally beginning to discover metaphysics and discover psychic things. To them it comes very natural and very easy. So that's where things are changing now, and I think it's for the good that that's happening. Because, I mean, I've had to watch this evolve. When I began 45 years ago, nobody was doing any of this. That's why they called me the pioneer in the beginning of reincarnation, past life regression. When I began in the 60s, such a thing did not exist. Metaphysics didn't exist. There was no New Age. The majority of the Western world didn't know anything about past lives or reincarnation at all. Because when I started and we got into it by accident, if anything is ever an accident, they thought I was working with the devil, having seances, speaking to the dead. We are speaking to the dead, but it's not the way they were saying. I got kicked out of the church. A whole lot of things happened in those days. How many of you read my first book, 5 Lives Remembered? Not too many. So maybe I can go over a little bit about that. But that's how I can see how things have changed. But when I began, my husband was a Navy veteran, 21 years in the Navy. And me and him were both doing hypnosis in those days. But hypnosis was only used for habits. Stop smoking, lose weight, and to relax. Nobody would have ever back.
You're very humble. You have wrote 13 books and traveled, I believe, you told me this morning, 2 million miles. That's pretty powerful in your career, though.
Yes, 2 million miles. I have 17 books in print. And the 18th is ready to go to press.
Wow.
I'm working on 3 more.
Wow. Can you hold up a copy of your most recent book, just for the camera, for those that want to have a copy? The 3 Waves of Volunteers in the New Era.
Yeah, that's one of the last ones I've written.
Can you just tell us a little synopsis of that, just a very, very brief, if you
Well,
can?
that deals with the 3 waves of volunteers, who are the people that have volunteered to come into the earth at this time to help save the earth from their energy. Their energy is pure, so they're bringing in a special kind of energy that will help change the world, and that's why they're here. And people all over the world, we get tons of emails, and they're always saying, that's how I feel. And I didn't think anybody else in the world felt that way. They felt they were all alone.
Admittedly, in the last 4 years, there's been massive changes over there for me, being in the midst of this and helped. I think a lot of people that come to your conferences and read your books would be looking for awareness. Would that be the one thing you wanted to take away and raise their awareness?
We are making a difference. Things are changing. And I have great hope for the world because I see what's happening everywhere. And it's a very important time to be alive right now.
You were talking in the workshop about there is no good or evil. Where does Satan fit into all this? This is the one that I...
There is no Satan.
Creation, fictitious creation by man.
He's talking about Satan.
Yeah.
There is no Satan.
This is man playing out his...
There is no devil, there is no Satan. What you're talking about is Lucifer.
Yeah.
Lucifer was an angel, according to the stories. But no, there's no evil forces at all. That's what people have to get away from. The church is the ones who have created all of that, to make people afraid.
I've always personally thought that life is a test and I'm trying to better myself, and I always kind of, I throw it back to key decisions that I make in my life, and they're like, do you think they're like nodal points that you know?
Well, that's what life is all about, learning lessons and having experiences. So it's constantly making decisions and hoping you're going to make the right one.
Do you think perhaps the timeline at the start point and the finish point is guaranteed? It's just these nodal points could change in between these key decisions?
I mean, if your life...
Okay, so that's all my questions. I do want to mention the cruise that you're going on, the Holy Land cruise. Why the Holy Land cruise at sea? Is it something you love to do? Is it the setting?
Well, 2 years ago we did a Mediterranean cruise, and we went to most of these same ports. This time we wanted to go to ports that we hadn't gone to before. We thought, well, we hadn't been to Jerusalem and Israel, so throw that in, because it's things that people want to see. But now we're a little worried about it because they're having the problems over there. But they said if they can't go there, because they won't go there if there's any hint of danger, they will put in some other ports to go to. But we're calling it the Holy Land Cruise because we've never been to Israel before.
And of course the Holy Land Cruise is on October 25th to November 5th, 2014, featuring Robert Boval, yourself, Dolores Cannon, and Haktan Akdogan, I think his name is.
He's from Istanbul. And Guy Needler is from England, from London. He's coming.
I've had Guy Needler on the show, lovely guy.
And Maria Wheatley is another English author who's going to be on the cruise.
Another regular Black.
Okay.
Wow, fascinating. Okay, listen, Dolores, I really thank you for your time today. I know you've had a long day, so I really appreciate your time.
Trying to get the heat regulated because she was dripping wet up here. So we're trying to get all the windows open. Okay, they want me to test this. Is it working okay? Okay, good. I'll probably take his jacket off in a little bit. Okay. Thank you. All right, well, I've written 17 books, and at lectures I can talk about so many things. I have tons of information. But they said they wanted me to focus today on reincarnation in past lives. Wasn't that what it was? Whoever's the boss. Are you the boss? Okay. Because otherwise I can go off into so many other categories. And we'll have questions and answers, and if people want to go off into the other parts, you can do that. But if we want to focus on the reincarnation, well, you know when you're coming to Earth, you make a plan of when you're going to leave. You also make plans of the different events that will occur along the way if you take advantage of them. If you don't, your life could take another path and be totally different. It's all about crossroads, all about paths. Which one do you go down?
I believe in UFOs, I believe in souls and other dimensions and other galaxies that we come and we go and we reincarnate. But if I wanted to remember, do I have that in me as an ability to remember? Or is it just something that will either happen?
With the hypnosis and the past life regressions, you can remember.
Is there any other way that would naturally happen or spontaneous?
Maybe through meditation. If you learn how to meditate and quiet your mind, you might be able to remember.
Is it important as a soul on this planet that we do remember?
Not really.
It's just a matter of choice?
It's a curiosity of humans. Because they, the ones I work with, have said it doesn't matter anymore. If you think about the past, you're dwelling in the past. So they said, think about now and moving forward, not on what you had done that you wish you hadn't done in other lives. So we're not supposed to worry about that. We're supposed to just move on and think about now. So, not really that important if you find out what you did or not.
You talk about the wheel of karma. If somebody wants to get off that wheel of karma and try to progress, what's the best way to do that?
Forgive.
Something I have trouble with. I'm glad I asked that.
They have to forgive those that they have harmed, and then to forgive themselves, because it always takes two in every situation. They forget about that. To forgive everyone who they think has harmed them, not carry that forward. Let it go, it doesn't matter, it's not important. And then to forgive themselves for the part they played in the situation.
Do you see metaphysics and modern age quantum physics blending in now? Do you have hope for?
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
There is
Not
no
some
difference.
scientists, though. To some physicists, it's not. But,
Well, the physicists are agreeing with me.
yeah.
I get emails from them and they say, you're rewriting physicists.
Wow.
How do you pronounce that?
Yeah,
Physics.
rewriting physics.
They said, you're rewriting it. You're making it where everybody can understand it now. It's all connected. Science separates it, but there is no separation, really.
You also talk about consciousness of cells. How important is cellular memory? Is it
Cellular memory just for the body.
Right, Dolores, you're very welcome to Capricorn TV. What an awesome day I'm having learning about your work.
Okay.
I think the first thing, just on the hypnosis, you talk about some realistic type of hypnotherapy. Can you just briefly describe that and why that's so important for your regression?
Well, the normal hypnosis, they don't do the type work that I do. Some of them do past life regressions, but they don't go all the rest of the way and get the healing. My method, we have found how to have instant healing in one session. A powerful technique that every illness, every disease, every physical ailment can be healed in one session instantly. That's why it's different than the normal hypnosis out there. They don't even approach what we have learned to do.
Is it more difficult to do, or is it just different?
It's very, very simple, very easy. And over 45 years, I've developed it to where it is a simple method. It's not complicated at all. The other methods, the old methods, are much more complicated.
You gravitated into this because of the regression work, though. That's why you tried this different type of style, is that correct?
Well, after my husband died, and while he was living even, we went into the past life regression. I've been doing that all along. Then it just developed into this other method. It's been a gradual thing, but it happened after all these other incidents happened.
So you said that there's the same information coming through from hundreds of people on all the regressions that you've done. At what point did you realize there's something to all this, that there's a pattern? You must have been in shock and awe that this was being repeatedly told.
No, I never go into shock and awe. I'm always curious.
Curious?
Yes, because when it begins to happen, I see a pattern right away. And I know what's happening. I said, we're repeating something and we're getting more same information. That's when I put that down, and then I know some more will come soon, and it always comes right after that, some more information about the same subject. But I'm not in awe of it. It's just, wow, look what I found now.
It's like a realization and an importance or significance, perhaps?
Well, I guess it's just like, look what I discovered. And that part is interesting. Because I'm the reporter, the investigator, the researcher of lost knowledge. So if I can find something that nobody knows or has been lost or buried and forgotten, that's my job, is to bring it